What do you get if you cross cannibalistic mutants and an island that has so many missing kids you'd think it belongs to Jeffrey Epstein? You get The Forest, a 2014 survival horror game which I was forced to play for the first time as part of my Spin the Wheel series. Our journey begins on a budget flight with my son Timmy. We decided to go on holiday as I'm not taking a divorce very well, and judging by his hairline, neither is he. I looked down at his awful drawings. His teacher once told me he was artistic, but now I'm starting to think I misheard her. We start to experience a bit of turbulence before the plane crashes into the forest in what I would describe as the worst air disaster of the 21st century. During the aftermath, we notice Timmy has been taken by some creepy red creature.
That back there is not real!
We wake up the next morning to see our food bar is empty. I thought Timmy being taken was going to be the worst part of my day, but now I'm forced to eat airplane food. I realise I'm in a survival situation, so the first thing I do is ask myself, what would Bear Grylls do?
The only thing I can do is to drink my own pee.
The game doesn't let me drink piss, which feels like a bad design in my opinion, so I find some booze and drink that instead, just in case it's Coors Light. We all know it tastes the same. We find an axe and make sure it's still working before using it to crack open suitcases for some supplies. Seeing how aggressive I handle suitcases really makes me think I should get a job at an airport. We craft a spear before leaving the crash to find a place to set up our first camp. We find a beach and suddenly I'm reminded of the last time I went to the beach when a seagull shit on my head. I ran into the sea to try and wash it off, but the current was too strong and the waves pulled me in and I started drowning. I found my balance and quickly stood up before I stepped on a jellyfish which stung my foot and it began to swell up. My friends managed to convince me the pee would help alleviate the pain, before they all took turns to treat me like a human toilet, in what could only be described as a Bear Grylls cocktail party. I haven't been to the beach since this traumatic experience, but I finally faced my fears and set up camp here. Moments later, I see a seagull and suddenly my PTSD kicks in, and I feel like I'm drowning as I swallow seawater. I then murder the little bastard and his entire family, before completing what feels like a very wholesome character arc. We build our first fire, a drying rack and a water collector before heading into the forest where we see a deer. Bambi may have struggled to walk on ice, but I think he'll struggle a bit more with the 6-foot spear in his spine. We put our meat on the drying rack. Seeing this much hanging meat reminds me of my camera roll. I should really stop sending those pictures. I spot a group of indigenous people and I feel a sudden urge to kill them and claim their land, which I think is the Brit inside me. The cannibals begin taunting me, so I combine booze and cloth to burn one with a Molotov. We get hit a couple of times before finally making our first kill with the spear. I fight off the rest of the tribe before taking one of the cannibals to my camp so I can lay with them and claim myself as the dominant species of this island. The cock-blocking game doesn't let us into the shelter for some reason, so I rage and put them on the fire instead. To my surprise, the cannibal drops bones, which can be used to craft armor. A very useful resource indeed, but not quite the nighttime bone I had in mind. We wake up on day 2, and the taste of seagull for breakfast motivates me to get off this island, so I begin my search for Timmy. I feel like I'm Liam Neeson in the film Taken, as I search for my kidnapped child and I possess a certain set of skills. Sure, Liam Neeson may be a great killer, but I can down a pint in 3 seconds and burp the entire alphabet, so who's the real winner? I interact with local wildlife as we explore our new homeland before finding a village, which I assume belongs to the cannibals. Inside the village I find a cave, which we enter by climbing down a rope that's so long a giraffe could use it to hang itself. At this point I decide to change the graphic settings just so it's easier to see in the caves. I did this because I cared deeply about your viewing experience and not because I'm on the verge of shitting myself or anything like that. We head further into the cave where we kill one cannibal with a stab to the groin.
Cockshot!
We then find our first mutant, and although I'm not a big fan of their music, I still can't believe I met Sam Smith. I quickly learned that the spear doesn't do any damage, but if there's one thing I know in life, is that booze does damage. Whether it's to make a Molotov to damage mutants, or whether it's when you drink so much that you black out and you damage your relationship from trying to hit on your girlfriend's mum all night. We kill the mutant before exploring the rest of the cave, picking up dynamite, this completely normal message, and some red paint which we cover ourselves in. I then experienced the worst jump scare in my life from a mutant baby. I haven't killed a baby that quickly since my last bulk purchase of the morning after pill. After heading back to camp, I decide that we need a new forever home, so I start exploring in a different direction. We travel past old SeaWorld animals before noticing an abandoned yacht. It's a bit of a distance, but I decide to swim there, as my dad always said that he had strong swimmers. I never quite knew what he meant. It still confuses me and my 14 siblings. We find out another kid is missing on the back of a carton, which naturally makes me crave some milk. We find a beautiful cliff for the location of our forever home, where cannibals will only be able to come in one direction, which is, and ironically, Louis Walsh's dream. Using a sled, we start to carry logs from the forest and begin constructing our base. The sound design in this game is amazing, so this one's for you weird AMSR fans.
cannot believe what I am hearing!
My ADHD brain becomes restless, so I decide to explore further. I find another cave, and heads up guys, it won't be the last. This game has more dodgy underground tunnels than the New York Jewish community. The cave was pretty standard, with cannibals trying to kill me, and a jump scare that almost made me piss myself. We find a piece of Timmy's toy before finding one of his shitty drawings, hinting that I must keep exploring these caves if I ever want to find him. We then find a rebreather which allows me to scuba dive. My child may be kidnapped, but that's not going to stop me enjoying holiday activities, which again I think is the Brit inside me. We complete our base, and I'll be honest guys, it's not great. I can see where Timmy gets his artisticness from. We continue our adventure and explore more caves than an unhappy married man on OnlyFans. I find a tennis ball, so I play a wholesome game of fetch with a mutant. We find an autopsy report, an upgraded axe, a map and compass, and another part of Timmy's toy. I start to become upset as I reminisce and remember Timmy's first ever word.
Timmy!
We exit into another cannibal village where tennis players are practicing bondage. I consider king shaming, but suddenly remember the trauma of losing my virginity. I tend to keep things bottled up, but you guys are basically my collective therapist at this point, so here it goes. I was waitering at a well-known award show where I congratulated a famous musician for winning an award. I thought I hit the jackpot when she who cannot be named for legal reasons took an interest in me. One thing led to another, and she took me back to this fancy hotel, where she told me to close my eyes and relax. I naively followed along before she decided to take things to the next level, and to put it bluntly, she proceeded to insert her music award inside of me. I'm pretty sure some of the award broke off and has been stuck there since, but I've been too stubborn to go to the doctors. I guess you could say it's because of the Brit inside me. I use the map and compass to begin exploring parts of the island I haven't seen yet. We run into a big group of cannibals, so I start picking off one by one, including this one who started worshipping me because I'm covered in red paint. Well, if you treat me like a god, I'm gonna act like one, and murder you viciously, for no apparent reason. We spend the next couple of days exploring most of the island, killing cannibals, boars, and crocodiles. As we look around the forest, we find a massive sinkhole which can only mean one thing. Your mum must have fallen over. Sorry, I wish I had friends in real life to play this game with so I could make that joke to them instead. Feel free to get me back and comment your best mum joke below. We recognise the sinkhole as what we found on Timmy's drawing earlier, so our suspicion is that he's probably down there, but now we just need to figure out how to actually get down there. We head back to camp where we decide to put Timmy's drawings on the wall. I want to say it's because it reminds me of him, but it's really because I don't want to have to take them home and put them on the fridge. To secure the base further, I decide there's only one thing to do.
We're going to build a wall.
Once the wall is completed, we continue to look for our son, finding more toy pieces and drawings. We then pick up our new favourite weapon, a katana, enabling me to fulfill my British prophecy by increasing the rate of local knife crime. I suddenly do what everyone does when they go away on holiday. I start to think I left the oven on. I've accepted that the house will be burned down by now, but surely I can submit a dodgy insurance claim. The sweet, sweet smell of fraud makes me forget all about little Timmy, so I build a boat and begin sailing the ocean home instead. On my travels, I accidentally bump into an underwater cave, which I access by using the rebreather. We find a blueprint to craft a tower and also a glider, which is possibly a way that I can access the sinkhole where Timmy may be. I do a U-turn and decide to continue looking for our boy, as the house insurance money could pay for some much needed art lessons. Before entering the sinkhole, I use the map and compass to find caves I haven't entered before, where I find a climbing axe, a keycard, and a chainsaw. I then craft a glider using the skull and bones of my enemies. I finally feel ready to dive into the sinkhole, but something doesn't sit right with me. I've been given a chainsaw and blueprints to a tower that requires logs. If a god exists, he wants me to glide into that sinkhole from the tower and do it in style. As the tower requires hundreds of logs, it means we get to dive into our favourite hobby, deforestation. There's something about the removal of trees that just really takes my breath away. Get it? Because oxygen? My chainsaw runs out of fuel quicker than my ability to tell a decent joke. On the hunt for fuel cans, we discover a new cave, which we somehow previously missed. In the depths of the cave, we find the final piece to Timmy's toy and put it back together. At least if Timmy doesn't make it out alive, this should probably get me a few quid on Facebook Marketplace. We head deeper into the cave before realizing we have accidentally accessed the sinkhole. As I start to freeze to death, I begin building a fire before I realize I've run out of sticks. This is the ultimate sign that I must access the hole only from the tower. We head back to the forest more determined than ever and use the chainsaw to drop more logs than me after curry night. I only pause to pull off a couple of snipes before I finally finish constructing the tower. We say our final goodbyes to the awful base before looking at Timmy's drawings and remind ourselves what this is all about. I say farewell to my pet rabbit before heading up the tower. Using the map and compass, I head towards the sinkhole. As I majestically fly through the air, I feel a sudden urge to steal people's food and shit on their heads. I then realize I've become the very thing I sought to destroy. I am a seagull. I descend into the hole where I notice some mutants, so I land on a rock and snipe them out. We progress through the sinkhole and locate a vault which we access by using our keycard, which takes us inside the Sahara laboratory. We then enter a children's ward where we find a magazine that tells us a device can bring back the dead. If I could bring back anyone from the dead, it would probably have to be Terry, my old next door neighbour. I'm still waiting for the right time to ask his widowed wife to return my lawnmower. Every time I speak to her, she just cries about the tragedy of him dying in that ironic lawnmower accident. We continue to explore the lab after demonstrating how baby toys are made. I stumble upon the device from the magazine and decide to take a peek inside, where we finally find my boy. I place his lifeless body on the table and give him his toy to rest with. Nobody wants to see their child's face covered in that kind of blood, but at least it covers his hairline. We suddenly remember that this device may be able to bring back the dead, so we load up the machine before discovering that we need to sacrifice somebody else in order to save Timmy. In the search for a sacrificial host, I find a dead man covered in red paint. I look at the clues we previously picked up and work out that this is the man who kidnapped my boy. I'm unable to get my revenge as he's already dead due to excessive crayon stabbing. To quote two gentlemen in Paris, that shit cray on. My ability to tell an awful dad joke tells me I still have a chance of saving Timmy. We continue to look through the lab where we find a very non-creepy girl covered in blood called Megan. Her drawings, crayons and clear lust for blood tells me that she killed her dad, the red man. She then taunts me that our plane crashed. I'm not getting any good vibes from this girl, but God, I wish Timmy could draw like her. She awkwardly tries to bring back the Harlem Shake before transforming into a monster, ready for our first and final boss fight. She is no longer a little girl, which is, unironically, Drake's nightmare. Using dynamite, the ability to run away, and camping with a bow and arrow, we finally silence Meg once and for all.
Shut up, Meg.
We try and sacrifice her to save Timmy, but we're told we need a live host before she conveniently drops a keycard for us to explore a new area. We take a lift up the observatory where we find a machine, and suddenly, everything starts to add up. The red man wanted to save his daughter Megan, so he used this machine to shoot down our plane in order to kidnap Timmy and then sacrifice him in the resurrection device, which saved Megan's life. We now have a very important decision to make. We can either repeat the process by shooting down this plane, allowing us to sacrifice another child for Timmy, who may turn into a monster who wants to kill me anyway, just like Megan did to her father, or we can switch off the machine completely and end this cycle for good, sparing the lives of innocent people, but at the cost of accepting Timmy's death. It's like what they say, you either die childless or you live long enough to see yourself become the red man. I considered doing the moral thing before I realised one of the kids is a 9-year-old with the name Kevin, which to me is child abuse, so I decided to shoot the plane down and put him out of his misery. If you want to support the movement and help put a stop to babies being named Kevin, don't forget to like and subscribe. We become responsible for a plane crash and begin feeling what could only be described as George Bush guilt. Sometime in the near future, we appear on a reality TV show with Timmy, who's had one too many coffees. I was really hoping we were going to be on the Jeremy Kyle show, so I can finally prove once and for all that he's just not my child. Timmy starts violently shaking just like Megan did, but we manage to calm him down and stop him turning into a monster. Finally, we fast forward into the future and Timmy is all grown up. He's traumatized, has a drink and drug problem, no girlfriend inside, and my only message to him, as the loving father I am, is welcome to the real world, pal. He looks like he's about to mutate into a monster before the game ends, and we're left with unanswered questions, like does Timmy mutate and kill me like Megan did her father? Is there a second island to explore? And most importantly, where did Timmy get such a good hair transplant? If you've watched this all the way through, then thank you, you are a hero, and I sincerely hope that your dodgy fire stick never buffers again.